Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, In the Light of Islam. And I greet you with Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. Dear viewers, in this segment of our program, we have further questions concerning the hijab of women. We also have a question which came from England concerning hijra. We also have some questions concerning the categories of Islamic law. We'll try to address as many of them as we can in this segment. The first question actually I'd like to look at is the one which came from England. Brother writes, Muhammad Zubair, he writes, my current situation, after saying, dear Dr. Bilal, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, he says here, my current situation is that I have so much in assets. He mentioned some numbers of money. I'm married with 2 children. One is 4 years old and the other is 6 months. They're boys. I myself am 23 years old and work as an engineer and have done so for 5 years. My wife is also 23 years old. I have no other means of contact or know of anyone else living in Sharjah or any other Islamic country. I really want to do hijrah for the sake of my children and to live a proper Islamic life. Living in the country where I am, in England, things are getting from bad to worse. With liquor stores and pubs on every corner and people walking around half naked. Dr. Bilal Phillips, I need your support and advice on the procedures and steps required to enable me to carry out hijrah successfully. Okay, first let me just address the issue of hijrah. Muhammad Zubair writing in about hijrah. The issue of hijrah from non-Muslim countries, where Muslims are in a situation where they are a minority, where they are an oppressed minority, where they are not able to practice Islamic teachings, then it is recommended for them to make hijrah. That is, to emigrate from those countries to the lands where Muslims are the majority or Muslims run the countries, or they're able to practice Islam better. Of course, some people might say, well, Muslim countries today don't open their arms and say anybody who wants to come can come. Well, yes, these are political realities of our times, but one can seek other countries to work in, etc., as a means of providing a better environment for one's family, Islamically, etc. So my advice to Muhammad Zubair, brother, it is a noble thought on your part to want to try to get out of England because of what you perceive there, of alcohol being so readily available in the society, and the nakedness of people, etc., which is of course not a good environment in which to raise children. How does one make hijrah to the Emirates, for example? Well, one may do so by finding a suitable job. I would advise an individual who's thinking about doing something like this to come here first. You're from England, you're able to come on a visit visa. These are provided by the Emirates for people coming from England and other European countries, etc. You may come on a visit, and look around and see what circumstances are available, what kind of working circumstances. You're an engineer. Of course, this is depending on the area of engineering that you're in. It is a very good field. The Emirates is a growing society. It is developing very rapidly. It's in the need of a lot of technical expertise, etc., to develop its infrastructure as well as its external basic needs. So a person who has these kinds of skills, which are in demand here, who has a good chance to get a job, and having gotten a job, then one can always, bring one's family to stay with one, and have the children go to schools here. There are a number of schools which are available, Arabic medium schools, English medium schools, with Islamic orientation, etc. And the environment in general in Sharjah is very Islamic, and there's a lot of things to support. The masjids are available. There are good sermons given, Friday prayers, there are lessons available in the mosques. There are associations, Al-Muntada al-Islami here, for example, and the Women's Club, which have programs for both men and women to further their Islamic knowledge. So these would be the type of steps I would suggest to one who would consider making hijrah or immigration from a non-Islamic environment to a more Islamic environment like that of Sharjah and UAE in general. That was our question from England, actually. The next question from Ijaz was writing in concerning hijab. Dear Dr. Bilal, I would like your program in the light of Islam. I'd like to ask you some questions. Quite often I see Muslim women without hijab or wearing the headscarf halfway on their heads, revealing their hair, or wearing dresses which are revealing. Could you please tell us about the awrah and the Islamic way of covering and its importance? Well, for women, because the question here is addressed primarily to the issue of women and how they dress. For the woman, the awrah, which would be considered to be, the private parts of the woman, the parts which should not be exposed to other than those who one is married to, immediate family members. This is the Islamic understanding. That is, when one leaves one's home, goes out in public, that this much of the body should be covered. The basic ruling held by the majority of scholars is that everything should be covered of the woman with the exception of her face, that is, from the top of the forehead to the chin, not including the ears, etc., nor the neck, but just the face, and the hands to the wrists. This is the basic position held by the majority of scholars. Now, though they hold this position, they still consider it to be recommended for a woman to cover more of her face, for example, to wear the niqab, which would cover the lower part of the face, so only the eyes are showing. And some scholars, a minority, but still a notable body of scholars, also hold that it is compulsory for a woman to cover her face. They bring evidences, citing the Quran and citing evidences from the practice of the Prophet, may God's peace be upon him, and his companions to support this. And in this regard, my advice, because probably people would ask me then, well, which one's the correct opinion? I would say that the best thing is for you as an individual to look at the evidences for both opinions, and the one which convinces you, the one where after reading it you feel convinced this is really the right one, that's the one that you are required to go with. Allah is not going to ask you as to what my opinion was or what's, so-and-so's opinion, that sheikh's opinion was. He's going to ask you about yourself. What were you convinced of? What did you believe to be right? Because if you believe it to be right that a woman, after hearing the arguments, that a woman should cover her complete body, including her face, then that's what you will be held responsible for. If you believe that it is recommended, but it's permissible for her, recommended to cover her face, but permissible for her to have her face exposed, then that's what you are held responsible for. To expose more of it, to allow your wife or your daughter, who has reached puberty, to go out exposing her neck, or her arms, or to wear a scarf which, is short and exposes the front of her hair, or it's see-through and you can see, everything underneath it, then of course you will be asked about it. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته, as the Prophet ﷺ said, each and every one of you is like a shepherd responsible for his flock. And the man is responsible for the family, for the wife and the children. What takes place in the home, what takes place outside the home when the wife and the children go out. He is asked about it. So as husbands, it's not enough for us to say, well, my wife, she prefers to dress like this. I think it's wrong, but no, there are no buts here. If you know what is correct, then you have to insist on it within your family. Otherwise, you will be held to account. Allah will ask you on the Day of Judgment. you will carry some of her sin. Not that, she's absolved because you are responsible. No, she is responsible for herself also, to know what's right and wrong and to do what is right. However, you being the head of the family, you are required to establish Islamic rule in your home and outside of your home wherever possible. So you will be asked concerning your wife as to how she was dressed on the Day of Judgment. If she was in a dress which is in disobedience to God, displeasing to God, then we will carry a part of that sin. So dear viewers, please let us know whose responsibility the wearing of proper dress Islamically is. It is the responsibility of the woman primarily, but the husband carries responsibility because he is the head of the household. What he permits, he is held responsible for. And that's with regards to the overall dress. So no part of the hair should be showing, shouldn't be see-through, etc. The other point, I should mention also that the garment that is being worn, when a woman leaves her home, she should wear outer garments, something like a cloak or coat that she wears covering her finery, the clothes that she normally would wear at home. Now it should not be in and of itself a source of attraction. In other words, it shouldn't be brightly colored with, all kinds of sequins and mirrors and flashy whatever, that it's attracting attention, and that is sexual attention to oneself. Similarly with the scarf should not be bright colored with all kind of fanciness. No, it should be plain, pastel type, low-key colors, which, don't entice or encourage, any kind of sexual attention. Now, having said that, we shouldn't neglect the aura of the man. There's a tendency to focus everything on the woman. She should be wearing this. And then the man, he can wear anything he wants. Well, it is generally understood that the man's aura is between his navel and knee. What is below the navel, what is above the knee, is an area of aura, or private parts, which should not be exposed. The Prophet ﷺ, had instructed that a man should not look at the thighs of another man, nor a woman at the thighs of another woman. So men should wear garments which do not expose this area. And that means not wearing garments which are pant-type garments, which are tight or close to being tight, which when a person sits or moves, bends, etc., exposes the private parts because they highlight them. And we have to be aware that Western dress in general tends to highlight the privates. So we have to either have specially cut clothing, or wear some kind